Hey everyone, welcome to Ad School. This is a series from Common Thread Collective all about the ins and outs of making great digital ad creative. Last episode, we talked all about the product. What are you selling? What should you be selling next? What makes the most sense for your business to be selling? In this episode, we'll be talking all about who you're selling to. Who's your ideal customer? How do you speak to them? Where do you do your research to find out how to talk to them? I'll be joined by Maya, our Director of Creative Performance, and Peter, our Business Development Manager, and we're going to get their expert insights on this very subject. Stay tuned.
We're talking about people, right? The person that you were talking to or the person on the other side of that ad is a different person from you. It's somebody who hasn't done all the research, somebody who isn't on the marketing team. So they are going to sort of ingest the information in a different way. So I guess the question that I want to put to you, Maya, first is how do you go about researching the person that you're talking to, finding out who it is, finding out what they care about? So maybe we'll start with that. Like where do you go to research? Where do you go to learn more?
Yeah, I find the more and more we get into this culture of social media, I guess we're like really already super into it. The more I don't have to find the research, it kind of just comes to me. And so I start off by just looking at, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So I was going to say Vine, but I meant TikTok. That shows you how old I am. And I look for the product. I look for the people that are engaging with products like this. And I look at what they're saying. What are their questions? Are they asking more about like how long things take to ship? Or are they asking if it really works? And what are they confused about? Who are these people when they start commenting? Are they the moms? Do they have kids in their bios? Or are they the young 20 somethings that are, doing a lot of brunching? Like, who are they? It's out there for us to consume, and it helps us to really make the ad experience a good one for people. I think ads have this connotation associated with them of being super annoying and pestering, and I make it my mission to like not make ads that pester you, but ads that actually speak to you where you are and will tell you immediately if this is a product that you're going to want or if it's a product that has nothing to do with you. And that's okay. Not everything is for everybody. So my research starts on social media primarily, and then it just kind of takes on its own life from there. And I go down the rabbit holes. It sounds probably like really fun because it sometimes is. You find yourself down this YouTube rabbit hole watching like makeup videos and learning about these different influencers and their audiences and their comment sections. So yeah, the research is just there for us to consume, and it's kind of enjoyable.
Yeah, we're in a time when like you're saying, there's more research than there's ever been available to us in our lives. And it's not like we have to sit down and do some sort of like marketing survey and do focus groups because everybody's doing their own focus groups for us already. So maybe take us down one of those rabbit holes with you. Like maybe, I don't know that it necessarily has to be a super specific example, but what would be sort of generally speaking, practically the way that you would sort of start going down that rabbit hole? Like what platform, and then once you're there, like what comes next and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So I'm like an Instagram aholic. I love pictures, so it's a good medium for me. So I think, let's say I have a shapewear company, which is something that I've engaged with multiple times as a consumer and as somebody like selling the product. And so what I'm going to first do is think about all the different shapewear companies out there. And the one that comes to mind as the most popular one right now is Kim Kardashian's, which is Skims. So I'm probably going to go to the Skims page and look at one of their posts and read the reviews there. Are people excited about this product? Are they coming to comment because they have the product and they want to encourage other people to buy it? Are they saying things like, oh my gosh, I loved this, this really worked? Or are they saying things like, this was really cute, but it didn't have the level of control I was hoping for, or it dug into my side, or it rolled down, or, whatever they're saying there. So that's where I would start, right? And I'm finding out what things people care about with regards to shapewear. And then from there, what I might do is like click on some of the profiles that are public and see who who they are, right? So does their bio say mommy of 3, and wife to be? Or does their bio say like 20 something, just like looking to have a good time? I'm figuring out who those people are. And then what I do is I take those 2 people. So say those are 2 of the people that I'm looking at. I take those 2 people and I look at them, and I think about what their specific shapewear needs would be. So for my 20 something, it's probably going to the club. It's maybe, going to brunch. It's these fun activities. That's why they would put shapewear on. They're going to their friends' weddings. And that actually might be an overlap with the mommy to be, who is also going to her friends' weddings, but maybe her shapewear is for church or for galas, for events, for different, maybe more grown up activities. And so I'm thinking about and she's a mommy to be, maybe she's a wife to be too. What is she going to wear her shapewear for? Maybe she needs some for her wedding. And that's where I start with like, okay, who are these people and what would they use this product for? And then I just kind of from there expand on those needs by looking up like weddings or looking up clubs or looking up outfits for the club, right? So then we get to a place where we have these short dresses for that 20 something. And the common misconception is that you can't wear shapewear under a short dress. So like it eliminates that option for you. Well, then I'm looking at my client and saying, do you have shapewear for short dresses? You do. Great. That is a selling point for this particular product and item. And then, just kind of going from there.
Yeah, it sort of becomes about putting yourself as much as possible into the shoes of that person. Like maybe if you yourself aren't the 23-year-old club person, just sort of using your research to become that person as much as you possibly can and to take their problems onto yourself in some ways.
And I've had a lot of clients that are like, oh, I don't know if a man could sell this. I'd like to have women on my team, or vice versa. I don't know if a woman could sell this. I'd like to have men on my team, or people that identify with my product. And I actually, from experience, think that the person that's probably the best for your brand is the person that knows nothing about it, because then they have to learn. They have to come up on that learning curve and figure out exactly what it is that makes your product unique from the basis of a beginner. So they're simplifying it for a beginner, which makes it a lot easier to consume when you're at your, what I call your dumbest of the day, is when you're like mindlessly scrolling on Instagram. You are not trying to be an intellectual. You're just trying to like, see some pretty things, have like that part of your brain be stimulated and go about your day and maybe go to sleep. So you want it to be easy. And that's what we're trying to succeed to do, is make things easy for people to understand.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a really important point to make about the people that you're talking to. It's not only a matter of their demographic and their likes and dislikes. There's also a question of what are they using the platform for specifically. And I know the next episode 3 will be about platform more specifically, but I think in this case, it's important to point out that when people are in Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or wherever it is you're advertising, yeah, it is a mindless activity, even if they're smart people. And I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind when you think about how you're messaging your product. I was going to say, and then we'll jump over to you, Pete, after this, but Maya, maybe you can walk us through what it would look like for you to go down this rabbit hole and research a person who is completely different from you. So you mentioned shapewear, skincare, a couple of other verticals that you might be sort of personally interested in. But let's say you get a product that's like men's everyday carry or something like that, like razors or like dot kits, or I don't know. So how would you go about putting yourself into the shoes of somebody who's just diametrically opposite from you?
Yeah, well, I think it's the same process, but with one extra step. I find it extremely beneficial to use the network that's available to you, your personal network. And so what I would do is I'd probably call my dad, who's also a shopaholic by trade. So I guess it's hereditary. I would call him and I'd be like, would you buy this? Just like cold call, is this something that you would like? And he'll probably tell me yes, no, or maybe so, and here's why. And I would start there. So my dad is like an older demographic. So then I would, also pose that question to my friends who are a bit younger, the 20 somethings, 30 somethings, 40 somethings, 50 somethings, 60 somethings, 70 somethings, 80 somethings, 90 somethings, 100 somethings. The 90 somethings, the 100 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 somethings, the the younger, like millennial demographic, and I would say, hey, what do you think of this? What would you buy this? Would you recommend this to your friends? Would you get this for your dad? And hear about why, or why they might not. And so the whys I'll probably take and parse out into, benefits. Can I sell this to other people using their whys? And then the why nots, I'll research and think about like them as barriers to entry for that product. So that's like that would be one step to that research. And then I would go into the same mode, right? I'm going to go research them on Instagram. I'm going to go look at their comment sections and their competitors' products, and who else is doing. What was the name of the kit?
Adopt kit. So it's just your toiletries bag or whatever.
Yeah. So who else is doing it, right? In the men's space. And is this something that men like get for themselves? Or is it something that, the women in their life buy for them? That's also a huge thing. We consistently see demographics across Facebook and Pinterest and, Google and Snapchat and TikTok be women led, right? Women are the prime, they have the most purchasing power at the moment, not because of their disposable income, but because it's their arena. This is where they are. And so what I want to know is, do I need to market to women to get this for men? Or are they buying it for themselves? So yeah, that's where I would start.
It's interesting. I think one thing that I hear when you say that, and it's been my experience too, is that I think there's a misconception that research has to be really analytical, really quantitative, really serious, when actually, in actual fact, like research can be pretty like casual, anecdotal, fun. I think like the classic example from advertising history would be sort of the male ad executive who spends millions of dollars on like market research about, dishwasher detergent. And then he has a 5-minute conversation with his wife that gives him like the breakthrough insight that he needs. Because it's just like people are more similar to each other than you think. And you don't need like reams of data to actually like find something that you can start exploring about your product.
Social media is a focus group and it's free, right? I do a lot of blogging and a lot of writing. And whenever I'm thinking about a topic, or I want like data on a topic, I want people's unsolicited opinions. First of all, I try my best to like diversify my network on these social media platforms. So I'm not just getting a bunch of people like me, but I'm getting other minded folks. And then I'll just put a poll on my Instagram story, right? It's so easy to start off on your path. And while that might not be the most statistically significant path to go on, it's definitely free, and it's a cheaper avenue to get where you're going. Instead of spending millions on focus groups and market research, you can bypass one step of it. Maybe you're only spending thousands, or maybe you're not at all, because people are really willing to give their opinions out for free.
Yeah, totally. Just sort of step back from that mindset and just like be a person and talk to people, and you're going to get a lot of interesting stuff. So I want to pivot to you, Pete, for a second. How do you see clients either understanding or misunderstanding their target demographic, their customer, the people that they're speaking to? Is there a way that you kind of, or maybe a piece of advice that you would give clients coming in to how to think about like maybe the person that they're speaking to?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think somewhat of an element and an extension of what Maya had alluded to, which is spend time where your consumers are. Best example, two of them come to mind actually. If you think about like food and beverage brands, well, lots of food and beverage brands do, and now it's a little bit of a different arena from e-commerce, but you'll see pop-ups in Whole Foods or pop-ups in Ralph's or Vaughn's, and people are giving out product because that's where their consumers are. People are going there to buy food. They want to interact with those people. They want to understand how they consume product. So I think spending time where your consumers actually live. I know the article that was written mentioned Reddit. There's a lot of sub threads in Reddit where consumers are engaging, talking about products, talking about specific industries or verticals, and that's where they're spending their time. So go to those places. I think the other practical example that comes to mind for me is Outdoor Voices, which is this big growing e-commerce brand taking on these legacy giants and Nike and Adidas. One of the things that I was always interested that they did was they had a run club, and I don't know if they still do this, but they did this in Texas, and they would go to different campuses and spend time with college students that were potential buyers of their product. And what was interesting about that is they created this community element, but really in theory, they were spending time with the consumers of their product, and they were understanding how they engaged with the brand, how they engaged with each other, how they engaged with fitness, all of these different touch points. That effectively is another element of research, and doesn't require a significant purchase of a massive data set to then try to analyze a bunch of numbers and try to predict future outcomes. It's going to the place in the community where your customer actually is and getting real-time feedback from them. So I think it's sometimes a common misunderstanding that you have to rely on analytics more than you do customer feedback. So I think those two things are interesting. The last thing I would say is that when we used to talk to brands early on, often they would ask about organic social. Do you manage organic social? Where does that feature? And our recommendation was always, if you have the resource to do it, that person should be in-house, living and breathing the brand, because they're the closest connection you have to the consumer. Along a lot of these organic channels, as Maya's alluding to, you can go down plenty of rabbit holes. You can find kind of free customer feedback. That person should live and breathe the brand every single day and be a connection point that can then inform your advertising, that can then inform your creative, that can then inform your email messaging, all of these kind of touch points. But that's the heartbeat of where you're headed in this digital ecosystem. So I think meeting your customer where you're at, and then having somebody in that position that can bridge that gap, I think those kinds of things are really, really helpful for brands.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a great point about organic social, because I think all too often brands can see organic social as like sort of vaguely a place for their brand voice to be heard or whatever. Like we'll do, these sort of whatever 2-sentence posts that are in the brand copy tone, and we'll post this picture because it's in sort of our digital asset manager, and that'll just sort of be what our organic social presence is. Or we'll be like Wendy's and be like really funny for no particular reason, when in fact what an organic social person should be doing is being the human being who's just communicating with other people for you on your behalf as much as possible. And just like having that, like basically that thinking of your organic social person as a research resource.
Exactly. And think about, as a consumer, we're on Instagram, we're following brands, but to make the leap and actually follow a brand page likely means you're interested in either the content they're putting out or the have to sell. If you're going to organically follow a brand on Instagram, Instagram was created, and Maya had alluded to this, as a place where pictures were put up, and it was a social network, and you could scroll and see what your friends were doing. And then they introduced Instagram story. Now more people brands. So if you're a brand and you have a loyal following, those are your people. Those are the people that care about you. Those are the people that are interested in your brand for whatever reason. So utilize that connection point as the ability to speak to those people, and then communicate to them the values of your brand and where you're headed. I think the other thing that does a great job of this in the e-commerce world is customer service. I think customer service can be a great entry point and ecosystem to build that trust and to understand what people are doing. There used to be funnels and kind of like email flows in certain instances from a strategy perspective where they were actually trying to drive customer service interaction with the client or with the customers, because they knew if somebody from the brand talked to the customer, well, instantly, if they have a good experience, that customer is loyal for life. They've actually talked to somebody behind the curtain of the brand. They get some insight into the value prop and the kind of place that the brand holds in the consumer's mind. So I think there's a bunch of different entry points to get there. Obviously, we sit more on the ad side and figuring out how we bridge that gap, but all of that data and all of that research, if you want to call it that, can be pulled into informing what your ad strategy can be, because those things are a little bit easier resources to access versus trying to, again, analyze numbers on a spreadsheet and make informed decisions that way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. As a customer service as also a research tool, or a way to do sort of almost like R&D on your product, or think about ways that it could be improved and ways that your ads could be improved, and think about the things that people genuinely care about. So post-purchase surveys maybe, and email follow-ups and SMS would be great examples of that. I was going to ask Maya, do you have experience with that sort of thing, like doing like post-purchase follow-ups or SMS or like customer service as research or anything like that?
No, I don't. Sorry. And Mandy would be great to bring on this ad school for that, though. I think that would be exciting. My post-purchase follow-up is the comment section, which don't discount it. People will tell you how they truly feel.
Right, definitely. And I think it's important to note that you don't really need let's necessarily post-purchase follow-up, because people will go and they will leave reviews on their own, and they'll go in the comments section and they'll tell you of their own accord.
Yeah. And I think it's all in different steps of the process. So my focus is on user acquisition. I'm trying to get all the people that might use this product in the door to try the product. And I make it a goal to work on products that I believe are what they say they are. So what I hope is when I get them in, they'll convert and they'll come back because this is a great product. And I've only told the truth about it. I am like, I don't know, traditional advertising has always had this like connotation or this air around it where like maybe people lie a little bit, but that's not what we do in a direct response. We have to tell the truth because people have to convert for our business to work. And so if we don't tell the truth and they get to the site and this isn't what they had bargained for, or they get the product and this isn't what they asked for, they're going to let us know.
Yeah, nothing. I think the old saying is nothing kills a bad product faster than good advertising. And so in some ways, that's sort of our job, right? Is if the product's bad, people are going to find out, and there's nothing that advertising can do about that, which is definitely an important thing to keep in mind. So where was I going to go next? God damn it, completely lost my train of thought. Corey, edit this out. Shouldn't be a problem. God, completely drawing a blank here.
Sorry,
No, you're good. So I think I was going to talk about. I have one section here. Oh, this was it. I think a lot of the time we think about product or we think about demographic in terms of these sort of broad descriptors of a person's sort of age, gender, where they live, stage in life. And those things are all important. But I think one thing that we're talking about when we talk about researching your person and the demographic is by doing it via reading reviews and via reading them talking about maybe the product in a Reddit thread about those products, you're learning about the person through their perspective on the product. And so I think that a huge problem that a lot of marketing agencies fall into, or marketing teams, is that you just say women 18 through 25, and they're hip and they live in New York. And that's going to give you kind of all the information that you need. When in actuality, who cares where they live? Honestly, who cares how old they are? That may come into play later. But what's important is how they are interacting with your product now. And that's where reading reviews comes in. And I think that's how it allows you to make more effective advertising, rather than starting from the sort of general idea of who the person is and then sort of trying to speak to whoever you think that person might be. So one thing that I break down, I know we only have 2 minutes here, so let's see how much we can get in. One thing that I break down in the article is this idea of that there's certain things that a product does for a person that kind of go beyond the practical effect. So the main thing that we think about generally in direct response is, so if you have makeup, does the makeup work? Or the skincare, does the skincare work? But then there's the other element of is this a product that I can identify with? That when I take it and I show my friends that I bought it, they're going to say, oh, that was a smart decision. Oh, I know that brand. Oh, that brand means something about you as a person. So there's this sort of identity piece behind a lot of products that is in some ways as important as the functional benefit of actually buying that product. So I wanted to talk, Maya, maybe a little bit about how you think about sort of branding and identity when you're creating ads or when you're trying to sell a product.
Yeah, I think this is an age-old battle with direct response, because people have, companies and clients, they have an attachment to their brand, and their brand is who they are and what they sell, and they want to make a name for that. But in the paid media world, brand is less important than meeting people where they are, than selling the product and converting them. And the fact of the matter is that people don't always want to convert on brand, especially when they're on these platforms that are so native. If I'm on TikTok and I see something that looks branded, I'm like, absolutely not. I'm trying to get to the funny stuff. So we have to serve the people what they want on the platforms that they're on. And a lot of times it's not the brand. It's like very subtle undertones of the brand with the very like native feel of the product. And so that is what we're trying to find that intersection when we're doing DR stuff, because otherwise we're going to give you a TV Nike ad and you're going to know it's an ad, and you're going to be like, this is the same thing I've seen before. So there's a huge importance on building your brand outside of what you do on paid media, so that people understand the ethos behind it. But the way that we do it on these paid media forums is going to look a lot different than the way that you envision this grand brand vision on these platforms.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And especially on a platform like TikTok, I would say there's almost no advantage to branding your content at all. It should just look organic as hell. And then your website should have the branding on it. And basically what that functions to do is to let people know that it's a real company. And
Exactly.
All right, Maya, you got to bounce. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your insights. Pete, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I think the only other thing is I'd just say, be true to who you are as a brand. Brands like Glossier did this really well. They started as a beauty blog reviewing beauty products, and proved that they could understand the beauty landscape. And then they created Glossier, and now they have that back. So I think it's important to validate who you are throughout the process in a way that's organic to what you're trying to do. If you think about Theragun and all these like fitness brands, well, they create validation through articles on GQ and sports influencers and partnerships with major sports organizations, or a partnership with Equinox. Those things are validators to who they are, but they're real. And so I think those kinds of things are important. And then advertising can be a vehicle to invite people into that story. And then to your point, the website validates, hey, we're a real brand. Hopefully when the product shows up at your door, it's in a nice poly mailer, or it's in a nice box, and you open it and maybe there's a letter from the founder, or maybe there's a note card saying, hey, we appreciate your purchase, follow us on social. So all these things interact together. And I think advertising is obviously the front end of that opportunity to invite more eyeballs into the conversation, and do so in a way that speaks to that group of people. So yeah, we can go on and on about it, but I think there's a lot of interesting elements there, which is spend time with the people that you think are likely to buy your product, and get a sense for how they're interacting with it. Because at the end of the day, that's all you really have. The article talks about how products inherently have little to no value. It's about what it does for somebody's lifestyle, both functionally and from an identity perspective. And the only way to understand that is to spend time with those people in a way where, Maya had alluded to, maybe it's the people who are potentially not customers of your brand, who would look at it objectively and say, well, it doesn't provide this functional benefit for me, and it does nothing for me from an identity perspective. So now you have, two opposite ends of the spectrum, versus the people who follow you on organic social. Those are the people who love you for your brand and for your product and for what it does provide from an identity perspective. So those two kind of frameworks, I think, are helpful in juxtaposition to one another. And I would encourage people to spend resources to go out and do that. It's more valuable than I think brands realize. So
I think the best way to think about brand, at least in this context, is that brand is the overall sense that your customer has of like who you are as a person, sort of. Like if you were like running a shop, a little mom and pop shop, the person behind the counter and maybe the salesperson helping you find something, that is your brand in a lot of ways. And that's the work that brand online has to do, because you don't actually have a salesperson necessarily. And so I would say that, like, being on brand, the best way you can be on brand is by having that great organic social person and that great customer service person. That's way more important than the graphic design on your website.
Totally.
There has to be enough, again, so it doesn't feel like it was made. It's, some guy in Estonia who's trying to take your money. But like, I do think that if you are being a human being and people come to you and they experience a relationship in some sense, then that is your brand, and that's going to be the thing that really compels people and brings them back for more.
Yeah, and that's why the founder story early on is so important, right? Like, often these D2C brands are founder led, right? And maybe you'll get an email from the founder in the early days when they're at $10, $15, $20,000 in sales, because every single sale matters. So it's important to figure out how you can duplicate that effort as you scale your brand, because it's not always going to be the founder sending the follow-up email. It's not always going to be the founder responding to customer service tickets, but often early on, it's the core group of people that are doing that. So how do you replicate that over and over again? I mean, you can do it, we had mentioned customer service. That's a way to do it. I think there's a way to do it through advertising. And I think that's the direction Maya's pushing some of our brands in, where applicable and where relevant, is to be really real. There's a way to do it through quizzes on websites, right? Bamboo Earth's a classic example of, they're trying to collect a lot of feedback so that they can give you a product that's better. And that was kind of like the ethos of the brand early on. So I think the ways that you can duplicate that, and ways you can, mold your advertising to kind of fit that narrative where it really feels one-to-one, it really feels more personal. Those things are valuable as teams grow. And that's, I think, the inherent value of direct to consumer. We're finally in a landscape where you can go directly to the brand. You don't have to go to a Macy's, or you don't have to go to a Home Depot and buy a product through another wholesaler to then get to the brand. I'm going directly to the brand's website. So as the brand, I have the ability to dictate the conversation in whatever way I choose. So I think there's a lot of powerful ways you can use that arena to make sure that you do what's true to you as a brand. So
no, that makes sense. Yeah, I think if there's one takeaway from this, it's be a person, research the people who are going to buy your product like they're real people, because they are. And I think that you're going to be off on a great foot. But all right, thanks for joining us, Pete. Thanks again to Maya. And we'll see y'all later.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.